everybody to Melissa Ichiuji Studio Gallery. I'm incredibly pleased you all are here tonight for this very monumental event for me, for us. No pressure. So this event actually marks the launch of a new nonprofit organization called Front Royal Project for the Arts. And so we will be dedicated to bringing thought-provoking, high-quality programming for our community to help us connect more deeply with the art world and ecosystem, and to help us connect more broadly with the creative voices that are shaping that world. I'd like to give a heartfelt thanks to the people that helped make this event actually possible tonight. It's your support that helps, it's the foundation for all that we're trying to build here. So I would like to point out George McIntyre, who is a community member here. He has been an advocate and a champion for this gallery and the events that have been happening here from day one. He's also a distinguished board member of the Front Royal Project for the Arts. I would like to thank you, George, for being here. I would like to thank Joe Gillette. Where are you, Joe? Hey. Thank you, literally, for helping us put this event together, literally. He's an artist here. He's also a gallery owner down the street. I'd like to thank Mark Cooley for all things audiovisual. Let's see, I'd like to thank my husband, Doug.
Thank you so much.
I'd like to thank Sally Price, who is my trusty assistant. And, of course, all of you, thank you for being here. The artists who are on the walls here or who have participated in past exhibitions or are artists in this community, could you raise your hand, please, and let us know that you are here? Hey, Joe. Arlene. Thank you all for being here. You're a vibrant part of this community. And now, it is my absolute pleasure and honor to introduce our guest tonight. So, Kenny Schachter is a force of nature in the art world. He's an artist, he's a writer, he's a critic, he's a professor. He teaches at University of Zurich. He's taught at MIT, Harvard, Columbia University, to name a few places. He is a provocateur whose work challenges and entertains in equal measure. From digital art to institutional critique, from the Venice Biennale to viral NFT projects.
Not yet, but I'm
Yes, you did. You curated something there, didn't you? Yes, you
Not
did.
yet.
I
But
heard
anyway,
it at
okay,
an
let's
interview.
just
All right,
so
Kenny's voice is one that refuses to be boxed in. He's traveled here all the way from New York City to be with us tonight. We are incredibly lucky to have him here in Front Royal, Virginia. Please join me in a very warm, heartfelt welcome to Kenny Schachter.
I took the Amtrak because I was a little bit frightened to try the airport after all those few little missteps there recently.
Oh,
So I
right.
wanted to play it safer. Fascinating, I know. Great start.
Okay, well, I have some questions here, but I want to open this up for all of you to ask questions at the end when we have time, because I know there will be a lot. So, Kenny, you've worn many hats: curator, artist yourself. You have a show currently up in New York City now.
Today was the last day.
Today was the last day, and I kept you from the festivities.
I chose to be here.
That's right. Look at that. You're a writer, you're a teacher, you're a market commentator, would you say?
I write about the machinations of the art world.
Yes. So for those that aren't familiar with your work, could you give us a bit of a thumbnail about how you even found yourself in the art world?
You have 3 hours. Well, I mean, I do most of those things you mentioned. And I would just, first and foremost, I would say that I'm an artist, a writer, and a teacher. Art is about self-expression and communication. So the reason I'm here is I'm just grateful that you invited me. Thank you all very, very much for coming here. It really touches me, makes the hair stand up, which is always my gauge of like how I react to things. Because look, I'm very appreciative to have a platform, to have an audience, and that you all took time. We live in very difficult, uncertain times, need I say. And all we have is our time, and it's a very short time on this planet. And what I teach and what I live by is life is very short. So as far as what I do and how I do it, etc., it could take 3 years to discuss how I came to sitting here. But the main thing is I'm just wild about art. I'm passionate about art. And life is so short. I always say to my students, like, you have to find a way to make your passion your life and your job. And the environment has changed so radically in the past, like 10 years alone. To be an artist is one of the most difficult. Yeah, it's a very exclusionary, unwelcoming place. And the opportunities seem to shrink by the second. Success affirms success. It's this catch-22. You can only get an opportunity or a foothold into a gallery if you've had some form of success. So, I mean, I haven't even touched on what I do, but I was giving a critique I was mentioning before at the Art Institute of Chicago. And in the middle of talking to one of the students, I came to the realization that there was some fundamental paradigm shifts in the way art is happening these days. And the art market, which I'm only writing about because I'm an outsider. I never took an art class in my entire life until I was teaching one at the New School. And I studied philosophy. I was brought up in Long Island, 17 miles from New York City. But it may as well have been 17 light years away because I didn't know art galleries existed until I was 26 years old. I never went to a museum. My mother died when I was very young, and my dad was, to put it mildly, not terribly supportive. I only went to the first museum in my life when I was at the East Wing of the National Gallery in Washington, D.C. I studied philosophy and political science in D.C., and I didn't go there as someone who was, particularly interested before I got there. I was probably procrastinating and smoking joints or something between us. And
did you get that?
It kind of it subconsciously stayed with me. And like I said, I didn't know galleries existed. I studied philosophy, Middle Eastern politics, and then there was nothing to do with an undergraduate philosophy degree. And I knew that, I think that as a professional, anything, you have to compromise in your life, and flexibility is of the most intrinsic ways of forging ahead. But I always say to my students, don't capitulate. Don't surrender. Don't get a job, a full-time job where for me, Sundays or holiday, I don't take a holiday unless there's art within spitting distance, because that's the only, I have 3 kids. I had 4 kids. I lost a kid 6 years ago. And if it wasn't for my family and art, I wouldn't be sitting here, period, yet talking to you and of clear mind and body to do so. So art it brings solace. It's been medically proven to have medicinal effects on people, like having a Labrador retriever in an older age home or something. And it really just changes. Every day I engage in a physical way with the works that I surround myself with. If any of you find yourselves in New York City, and I say this I'm ruthlessly honest and transparent, as you'll find out in the next, if I end this sentence. But get in touch. I'm ubiquitous, and come by, and I'll show you how I live and what I do. And I'm surrounded by the work of my peers and some of my heroes, and it makes my life livable. So I taught myself art by teaching it, because I never took an art class. I never knew that you could sell art until I was, again, procrastinating between jobs, and went to Andy Warhol's estate sale in 1988. And that was the first time I ever saw that you can actually own art in a domestic context. I had no idea. I call myself idiot savant. You've probably figured out why already. But I just thought that an artist made a work of art and it ended up in a museum. I had no idea about the commercial dissemination system that underlies the whole art market. And today, the art world is the art market. There's been this horrible convergence of the two. And to see this initiative, to be invited here, it means an awful lot to me. To see the art, to meet some of the people before, in the brief period I've crossed the threshold of this door. And it's like I'm seeing art that I'm interested in. I've met extraordinary people in the first 10 minutes that I got here. Not to mention your generous husband who drove an hour and a half to pick me up.
No problem.
Which was damn nice of him and you. And I mean, that's really it. So art is really, it's beyond making pictures or sculptures or videos or NFTs or whatever. It's about us sitting together in this room and having these coinciding interests.
That was good. That was
I haven't
good.
been provocative yet. But
Well, why do you think you've been described as provocative? And how valuable is it to be a disruptor in the contemporary art market now?
I never set out to piss anyone off or to upset anything or disrupt anything. I set out because I found something. I didn't want to, like I said, I didn't want to capitulate and spend my life longing for a weekend or a holiday, or that wasn't the way I was prepared to live. I saw my capricious dad like doing the same routine day in and day out and doing a job that he ended up doing and made his life for various economic necessity reasons. And sure, I do things to make a living that I'm not proud of, or I mean, nothing. Don't let your imagination, I'm not that provocative. But the reason, okay, back to your question. So the reason that I'm radical, if you can even call it that, in my field, doing what I do, I'm probably the only one in this entire art world that does what I do, probably because I'm stupid. But what I do is tell the truth ruthlessly about a world that is so opaque and it's so exclusionary and so unwelcoming and so, I mean, it's so bizarre. Before I got into art, I thought when I first got wind of the art world, I thought everyone was hanging from the chandelier, drinking absinthe and going to these wild parties where provocative things were really going down. And lo and behold, it was the most conservative, backward-looking field. I had worked a series of part-time jobs. So I mentioned I didn't want to be the L word, a lawyer. And I got I quit out of school in the first year, after 3/4 of the first year, and began a series of full-time jobs. I told my family and my employers that I was in night school, but there was no night school. I taught myself the classes. I taught myself the bar exam, and that gave me the framework, the discipline to learn art history and to teach it and write about it and make it. And I made art from when I was a kid and just tacked things onto my wall as an alienated. I used to stutter, which is part of the reason I never shut up or use punctuation. And even though I'm up to here in the art world now, and I've had a solo museum show in Austria, I just finished my 10th solo exhibition in the last 7 years, and I didn't lecture at MIT, to correct you, sorry, but I wrote for MIT Press about an American artist who died of AIDS in the 80s, Paul Tech, who I'm wildly passionate about. And I'll always be an outsider in my mind because I never knew galleries existed, and I took a sculpture class in law school, which I went to the first 2 classes, and a drawing class. My art dealer in Germany had the audacity to tell me that after I actually made some paintings, he told me that I shouldn't paint again, that my paintings were terrible and my drawings were as bad, if not worse. This is my art, the person who is meant to be representing me. That gives you an example of how
abusive.
And that's normal in the art world. And you know what? Again, I don't mean to be provocative, but I was asked to be on this. Poor Doug has heard all this crap on the way here. The car ride for so long. I never set out to be this. I mean, I kind of steal information from rich people and then give it to the aspiring rich people through my writing and my teaching. But I was asked to give a lecture on fake news in the art world. There is no fake news in the art world because the art world is one of the only forums that embraces lies. No art dealer, save for you, of course, you're an artist, I would say. No art dealer tells the truth. Go ask any art dealer at any given art fair how they've done and what they've sold and when did they sell it and how much they sold it for, and you'll get a ton of lies. The art world is so disingenuous, has its own brand of hypocrisy, And yet at the same time, I'm as crazy about it today as I was from the first day I saw it. And the fact is, as a writer, I get to have a place to talk about all of this. And because I've been doing this for so long, and I know a lot of people by default, because the art world is like picking up a rock and there's 100 worms intertwined like an incestuous little ball. And it's a big industry. I mean, it's gone down. It's been in a kind of systematic downturn in the last 10 years. But it's gone from like 68 billion at the high point to in the 50s. And it's still microscopic in relationship to like Apple Computer, Amazon, or the banking industry, or every other sector. So because of that, it very much operates on the basis of a zero-sum game where one person advances at the direct and measurable expense of somebody else. And as a result, because, I just love to give people hope. My museum show last year was called Keep Hope Alive. That was the name of a friend's horse that never won a race ever. And if anyone needs help and they say hello and please, I'll try to help people, because I think that it's my responsibility as someone who loves art, loves my children, and to try to help in the community and give something back. I've spent my whole life learning about not my whole life, 2/3. And I'm really grateful and appreciative for every opportunity I have, and hopefully the ones that I'll get in the future.
All right, let's switch gears. So you were an early adopter of digital art. You coined the term NFTism. And for those that don't know what an NFT is, perhaps you could talk a little bit about that.
Oh, God.
I know. So where do but you were an early adopter of digital art.
That's like a new pejorative term. If you really dislike someone, you could just call them an NFT. I mean, I was interested in technology, having studied ideas. I try to say that without my Long Island accent creeping in, which my kids will always mock me about. What is art? Art is a reflection of the social, political, economic times we live in and technological times. So when you think of artists that are I was speaking about Diebenkorn, Jane, right? She wrote the Resonate book for 2 decades on this most extraordinary American artist. I'd rather hear her speak than me. And I was really interested in technology, not as like a programmer or a coder, but I early on saw how technology would become an ever-increasing aspect of our lives. And God, did I underestimate that, even though I saw it early. And everyone's got a phone. All your kids help you use them and turn them on and off and get them to work properly. And I remember seeing this is how old I am, older than I look, and I'm very immature. But before there were Apple computers or home computers or yet smartphones, the only computer that you could own was a kit, in the form of a kit for hobbyists where you would have to put it together yourself. And even then, I don't know how or whatever or why, but it stayed with me. And not that I was always the kind of person that took things apart, because I was always curious to see what was inside, but then my attention span waned and I never bothered to try to. You see all these proud parents, like my daughter or my son took apart the car or the TV or film it, and they put it back together. That wasn't me. When it comes to writing, making art, and teaching, I could prepare for hours on end. But when it comes to anything else that I'm not as interested, I do my taxes intuitively. I just can't really do things that I'm not crazy about. And before you can get laptops, I got an IBM desktop with a floppy disk when I was finishing grad school, and I used it. Word processing was new at that time in the mid-'80s, in the early '80s. And that was a new way to formulate a sentence and a paragraph. It was almost like sculpting. Before you'd have to write it down, scratch it out, move it around, and rewrite it. But at that point, I typed 1,000 pages of text to pass my bar exam. And that gave me this kind of, to interface with this institutionally beige colored giant device with a floppy disk, and I never quite got past word processing and rudimentary Photoshop, but the experience was just revelatory towards me. And that's pretty much where like Apple and Steve Wozniak and his later Steve Jobs, who was more like the myth spinner, came up with Apple. And so for me, technology is, I mean, when you think of like Diebenkorn, Warhol, Joan Mitchell, Frida Kahlo, and Georgia O'Keeffe, when these artists were making their work, when they were in their 20s and 30s, they were radical, emerging artists without a consensus or a market for their work. And so today I just feel like a contemporary artist has to somehow relate to the times we live in. And boy, do we live in some interesting times. Every day you wake up, there's like the cartoons are coming on. So I've always appreciated technology, and I've always used it as a tool to make stuff in the same way a painter would. I don't paint. I try to paint sometimes, and I'll never stop because someone told me not to. That's all you have to do to say to make me want to do something more, because no one tells me what to do except for my kids and my wife. And nor will I ever listen to anyone. And the more no's I get, that's an invitation to keep pushing. And nothing will stop me until like, shh. And so I used computers to make art. I made my first computer animation in 1993 and made an installation, built something and put it in and made a kind of sculptural art installation in this exhibition. And it's like, you have a gallery and you're an artist, and you're quite a successful artist, showing all over the globe. The fact that you have a gallery, that to me is the perfect model for how someone has to function in today's contemporary art world. You can't look for opportunities. You can't try to find a gallery to represent you. You have to create your own opportunities. And there are tools that exist today that never existed before, like social media, computers. Anyway, I made art with computers. I started curating my own shows. We used to call them hit and run shows or guerrilla shows before the term pop-up even existed. And then I was making art from when I was a kid, alienated, closed in the room, no friends. I was overweight. I had issues in that regard. And I created my own universe. And I shaped the reality in a way that was tolerable for me and made life livable. And I used technology, and I became a curator, not because I had this great wanderlust to like organize other people's works per se, but I wanted to create a context so I could show my art amongst my peers, because nobody would take it seriously. Nobody would take it seriously. Nobody would take it in any shape or form. And I began teaching art in 1992 because once I found out that art existed as a vocation after Warhol's estate sale, I realized that I could teach anyone off the street post-war art in about 6 months. But if you want to make a living, make your life art, you need to know what happened from when it went on the cave to when it came off the wall of the cave. So I could not bear the thought of going back to school after sort of going to law school. So I figured I curated 6 shows by 92, had a review in the New York Times, and I got myself a meeting with the dean of the New School for Social Research in New York and said, I'd like to teach a seminar. And he said, where did you go to art school? I was like, never quite got that far, but I'm aiming. Anyway, he said, well, you can't. You need to go to graduate school to teach. And I said, well, I went to graduate school. I have a JD. He's like, wrong subject. So I said, I got reviewed by Roberta Smith, who's my hero. She's the only person, if you can imagine, that renders me speechless to this day. And I've collaborated with her brilliant husband, Jerry Saltz, on an NFT. I forgot that's what this question was. My head is like an atom smasher but I was hired on probation at the New School to teach 6 classes on art history and and the world of Marcel Duchamp and conceptual art, I would read 3 chapters I bought Jansen's book of art history, read 3 chapters, drank a beer to get my gumption up and my courage, and then taught it, and then started all over again. And then the dean left his position during the course of my 6 lectures, and I was on the books as an adjunct teacher, and I've never stopped teaching. Back to NFTs. So then I started teaching to learn, and I've never repeated a lecture in my life. I always, to this day, teach to study, to have the impetus, a gun to my head, to have the pressure, like even here, to perform well for you people. And that gets me excited. I get along with children and animals first and foremost, because I love the boundless curiosity is one of the most significant parts, not just being an artist, having an open mind, being curious about other people, treating everybody the same from all walks of life, taking every situation and putting it on an even footing. Because I've already met wonderful people that have already made talk worthwhile this trip before I started. And I'm grateful. So I started writing, but no, I didn't have an audience. So I couldn't even look in the mirror and say, you're a writer, because 6 people read it every month. But that was no impediment to me writing, continuing to write. Then with the advent of smartphones and the like, and digital platforms, I began writing for the last decades for ArtNet. And it has 100 million hits a month or whatever it is. It's the widest read, it's a terrible company between us and the camera. The way it's run, it's a word. My kids won't even let me post on social media. I'm a bit of an oversharer, if you haven't gathered that. They don't want anything to do with the family. They want to do it on their own, which is quite wonderful. But this one company I write for is the opposite, and it's a shame. It's a tech company that started with a transparent pricing database, and now they don't even have an app, which is disturbing. Anyway, so I went writing. Finally, my writing started to develop a big following because I was just telling the truth about my experiences like I've done to you. And no one in the art world will tell the truth. They're all so cautious because they don't want to alienate anyone they could potentially make $5 from. And I just don't care. I have my way of doing things. I always have my way of landing on my feet and making a living. So I'm not reliant or dependent on anyone or anything. I've had a lot of criticism because of my frankness and my forthrightness. But that's really who I am and what I'm doing. 3 strikes, and I'm taking your phone. I'm taking your phone away. I want some attention. You have it.
He's honest.
Anyway, so I began writing these truthful things, and that stood me out because no one takes risks anymore. Everyone is just worried about. In the art world, I say they're like Egyptian statues. They get paid from this one, paid from that one. They don't tell anyone the agency they have with different commercial actors. And I'm just I never lose that sense of dismay and wonderment that I had from the beginning. So I was writing my articles to give the experience of going to museums, going to galleries, going to art fairs, going to auctions. Auctions are a great place to learn about art because you can just kick the tires as a potential buyer. You can go to a Christie's or Sotheby's or Phillips or Bonhams or all the other ones, and you could just rub your nose against some of the most extraordinary works in history, and you can get right up close. And it's a great way to get a kind of mishmash, hodgepodge of what's happening at different points in time. And I was writing to give a deeper appreciation of the very things that I was forced to do to make a living. And it gave me, in the same way teaching makes me think about art in ways I wouldn't think about or pursue if I wasn't having to engage with the class. And writing was the same thing. And after a while, I came up with the idea after 15 years or 20 years, I would stick my digital art, my computer animations, and my 2D manipulated photographic work into my articles to illustrate what I was writing about. So I created my own platform before NFTs, before Instagram and Facebook and all of these things. These are tools that enable artists to communicate 24 hours a day. It blurs geographical boundaries. I've worked with artists from Africa, from Asia, from North and South America, and all the other continents, all through being able to relate to people through social media. People say like AI and some of these new technologies are dangerous, or robots, they're gonna like have the potential to destroy civilization. Every time I wake up and read the newspaper, I think we're doing a damn good job of destroying civilization all on our very own. So I just started doing my digital art, creating my own platform by curating my own shows. I showed artists at the time to surround myself with through my avid looking, like Cecily Brown, has a show at the Barnes Foundation. I put her in the first group show she was ever in her life. I couldn't give her works away for $1,000. I'm the worst salesperson in the entire world. I could buy it easily, but I'm not terribly good at selling this stuff. And other artists like that, various other artists that have become quite well known. And that was really to create my own opportunities. Today, more than any other time in history, there are more opportunities for artists only if you create them. You have to make them. Nothing is going to come to you in this world, especially in the art world, unless you go chase it. Like perseverance and tenacity are like curiosity, perseverance, tenacity, doggedness. Those are the key ingredients to anything in life. You can't give up. You can't get. So I made my own digital work. I found out about NFTs 5-6 years ago, and I didn't know what they were. I still barely know what they are, and I co-wrote a book about it with a scholar from Cambridge and the Courtauld Institute. But I didn't care that I couldn't understand. I still don't understand parallel computing and the blockchain completely. I'll be quite frank with you. But I thought this is a new way to get eyes on my art by putting it into an NFT. And I did it. And the art world is always paying lip service to nurturing new audiences, trying to, think about next generations of collectors and supporters of art. That's complete bullshit. Excuse me. All they want to do is sell more things to more of the same people that they sold to the month before. The same
Who are the primary audience?
Museums used to make such an impact. I remember, like critics, when Roberta Smith would write a negative review about you, you would be gleeful, running in the street, waving the newspaper around because that woman's voice is profound. She's semi-retired. It's a great loss to the art world. And today, critics have lost their teeth. Museums they used to be this sanctuary or this bastion of like legitimacy, credibility, and the imprimatur of a museum. Even a regional museum could be a game changer for your career. And now it's private museums. I mean, okay, you want me to start talking shit? Like Glenstone. You're within like 100 miles of some of the most important centers of the world. Like the Corcoran Museum is no longer with us. They used to have like the triennials and some of the most incredible like hotbeds of fermenting talent in the art world. A museum goes out of business because these people create like a tax shelter, not even in their backyard because it's in their front yard. And they have like the greatest, the endowment of any museum in the world today. And you have to get an appointment, and God knows finding it alone. Why couldn't they have just given that money to a proper museum that needs the money, not some private place that's like buying and selling and pruning? I've just read on the way here in the train, like there was this collector, Howard Wachowski in Dallas. I did a small museum show in '96, a group show in Arlington, Texas, between Dallas and Fort Worth. And we went to this, I remember two amazing visits. One to this Richard Meyer architectural masterpiece that Howard Wachowski lived in. And he wasn't there. He let someone take us through the house. And then I went to visit the Kimball Museum, and the head of it was a guy, Pillsbury. I don't recall his first name. And yeah, Ted. He was, Rachofsky, he had this like, with all the famous ticking boxes, all the famous names of the contemporary art world at that time. And then I went to the Kimball. Kimball, the Pillsbury is from, he drove to the museum in a Ferrari F40, which was worth like probably close to seven figures back then. He was the most humble, wrote me a beautiful handwritten note. I gave little gifts to Rachofsky for letting me bring my misfit band of emerging artists into his house, although he was nowhere near. And then Kimball, who's like tooling around in one of the most precious classic cars. And he writes, and I got them both little multiple objects by Damien Hirst when he was more of an artist than he is today, which is a whole other story. That's at part 2. And like one guy didn't even thank me for this gift, while the Pillsbury man wrote me a 2-page heartfelt handwritten letter, and that's it. And then I've written about like Howard Rachofsky promised all these gifts to the museum, including his house, and I just read today that his house is for sale. And I've written in the past, I've broken stories how he sold previous, I hope no one's friendly with him. He's sold art that was a promised gift to the Dallas Museum of Art, and that's kind of gross, you know. And this museum, I'm sure it's the most beautiful thing. And I mean, I went to an exhibition at Larry Gagosian not so long ago, and by this brilliant artist, Katie Nolan, who happens to be the daughter of Kenneth Nolan, but that's irrelevant. And she's a recluse, and she's a fascinating sculptress and conceptual artist. And I said to the person at the gallery, oh, how much is it? I just want to know, like, you put the prices on the wall. That's effing cool. Because you go to New York City or Zurich or Milan, and you go to Hauser and Wirth Gallery, which some of you may have heard of. If you ask someone behind the front desk how much something costs, they'll recoil in fear and like press an emergency. The sirens go off, and it's like, oh, 7 people have to be called. They look you up and down. Look at me. Like, I went to a bank after I went to my first art gallery, after seeing an ad in the newspaper for a group show with multiple objects by Cy Twombly, Joseph Beuys, and Sigmar Polka. I was like, when I found out that you could actually possess art in a domestic context, I went to Chase Manhattan Bank and I said, can I have a loan for $5,000? And they looked at me, I was dressed even worse than I am now. And they're like, for what? I'm like, to buy this print by Cy Twombly. They're like, what's the collateral? I'm like, the print. It's got like some crayon scribbles, literally, by Cy Twombly. And they looked at me like they turned their head sideways like a schnauzer that doesn't understand. And then they were going to like call the police. And I was summarily thrown out of the bank. And then I passed the bar. And I had a part-time job as a writer. That's how I honed my writing skill. And I had the manager of the law firm that I was part-time writing for call the bank, and I got the loan. And that launched everything. And I don't know, whatever. I made NFTs. It was great for 5 minutes. And then like the worst attributes of the contemporary art world, greed and short-sightedness, and took over that space. I created this word because when I first got involved in NFTs, I made $4,000. And I was like, this is unbelievable. I just wanted to have my art seen by a new group of non-jaded people.
While you're rolling your sleeves up, can we see your right arm?
Oh, please.
Come on now.
I put the word NFTism on my arm. My kids are like mortified. And then when the market collapsed, I changed it to post-NFTism. I never said I was normal, so let's establish that. But I created this word because for me, when I first got involved in art curating, my first curatorial project was in 1990. I started going to galleries and museums in the 80s. I taught myself art through going to Europe because at the time, if an art gallery did one art fair per year, that was considered the norm. By the time, fast forward 30 years, and galleries are doing 10 plus art fairs a year, that's the primary, before COVID, people weren't going to galleries in like a center like New York City or they were just going to art fairs to see the same stuff that was right in front of their nose, but they didn't even want to go to galleries. I'll go to an art fair, sit 300 galleries in an hour, breeze, and then blow out. And COVID, like for 1 year, there were no art fairs. I was teaching a class for School of Visual Arts it was a studio practice class, and then COVID happened. The first time I ever heard of Zoom, and I was like petrified in the beginning. I said I was going to cancel out, and I thought like that slightly goes against my whole grain. And it's like I was always late for something, but I was never going anywhere. And COVID like really made you, it was a tragedy where thousands, hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people lost their lives. I never fully recovered in terms of like I never got my smell fully back. My kid had it, one of my kids had it pretty badly. But like at the same time, I never put a watch on after COVID again. And every day I would screw my nose up against a piece of art in my house. I think of art like an action verb. I always move something around, touch it, engage with it. And I exaggerate a bit. I'm only normal, but like I did that this morning. I moved something, I touched something every day. And anyway, so I did NFTs and I made $4,000. I was like, whoa, this is insane. Then I started writing about it. I gave a lecture during COVID for 1,000 people at School of Visual Arts. I helped hundreds and hundreds, if not more, people get onboarded into this technology that were like me, like didn't know anything about it, but they were able to make a living like I did for the first times in their creative lives. And it was extraordinary to be a part of that. Sadly, it ate the worst attributes of the more contemporary fine art market within a brief 2-year period, and the window just slammed shut. I mean, I'm still doing them. I'm still writing and thinking and teaching about it, but I don't, it's a shame because it could have been the first time. The art market operates on the commercial model of like Lloyd's of London Insurance Company from the 18th century. It's usually two,
you can say it.
Yeah, whatever. Two like old rich people in a room shaking hands over an expensive artwork or whatever. They're great wealthy people, and there's always a bell's curve of people in the world. You can't say that. I mean, someone wrote a book about the art market saying it's all the rich people are horrible, all the kids of rich people are worse, and it's all smoke and mirrors. That's absurd. Art has an intrinsic, objective value like anything else. When the stock market goes down, the good companies go down. It's all psychologically driven, everything. And there's a bell's curve of morality and integrity in the world. I got involved with NFTs because it was just a way to get an opportunity for my art. And I helped a lot of other people do it. I have no regrets about doing it. I ended up going from 4,000 to making like money that I never would have dreamt that I could. And I never have since. It didn't last for very long. Anyway, I did it, and I'm grateful for that opportunity. Now it's done, and I find other ways. Go ahead, ask a question.
Okay, take a sip. Okay, I'd like to switch gears. You've been a huge advocate for female artists. Just in the course of the last 3 minutes, you've mentioned several. You have created a bronze monument to Roberta Smith. You've done a series of sculptures on the Venus of Willendorf. You championed Cecily Brown, also female NFT artists. Could you talk to me about your advocacy for the feminine, and why do you think female artists are still undervalued?
Because people are pathetic and disgusting and that. I am a human being. I never had this desire to like be this great anything. I just love art. And I started curating shows in 1990, and I always made an effort to show people of all different stripes, culturally, ethnically, women artists, African American artists. Now the floodgates have opened for various artists from outside the normative parameters of what constitutes the art market. Still today, if you look at the overall auction results today, women are still dramatically undervalued and underappreciated in relationship to their male counterparts. It's disgraceful. I'm not a great humanitarian or Boutros Ghali or whatever, or like Gandhi. I just care about people. I'm a human being in a human world where people have compassion, the generosity of spirit to come here to speak to people that are interested in hearing. I'm grateful, like I said, and I really mean it. And I just, if I was curating shows and giving people the chance to have their work seen, Well, if I was going to look high and low for a fair representation of the society that I lived in, that's my responsibility as someone. When you have a public forum, then you have to engage with the public and not be some small-minded, narrow-minded asshole about it. Excuse me, I'm not running for anything, although I frequently sound like it. I've never won an award. If anything, I should be on the list of the least 100 powerful people in the whole world. I don't care. If my kids, I don't care. I have to answer to myself, to my family, and to the world in which I live and work. And there's no I didn't have a forethought about it. It's just what any like-minded person that has some degree of integrity and morality would do. That's why I did it.
You've been very open about your experiences with loss and grief. Could you talk also about, I know you've also talked about... I
don't want to start crying or anything.
No,
but even I have a line of demarcation.
You said anything goes. How has art helped you process?
Art is the only solace I have. After losing a kid, I don't want to get emotional, but I don't put it past me. But I don't have fun ever anymore in my life. This is fun when I'm done anyway. And teaching, writing, and making art gives me a great deal of satisfaction. Helping people gives me joy. But art gives me solace, like being with my children. It's all I have, so that's all I want. I want to make the best of my time and help people, speak openly about the things I've been through. And everyone had trauma in their life. We've all had trauma. No one in this room is absolved from ever having gone through a difficult period in their life. And I just think that it's important to us to help. Let's talk about assholes in the art world so I can regain my composure.
Okay, so my goal here is to help this community understand a little bit more about how they can function in our current art world. What advice would you give? Well, first of all, is it important anymore to be in a central hub of
That's a great question.
Art world? Somebody
wrote me an email literally 30 years ago. I guess... I'm sorry, man. Are you trying to test me? Hang on to your damn phone, for Christ's sake. Okay, then you're fine. Okay. You're worse than my kids, you two. It runs in the family. Someone wrote me a letter 30 years ago. See, if I was still drinking and doing drugs, which I did in the day, and having lost a kid helped me really refocus my priorities in life. And I would have amazing I can just keep my train of thought thus far. But someone wrote me a letter, how do I get a foothold into a very unwelcoming art world? And he wrote me this beautiful 2-page letter, and I wrote back, moved to New York. In no way was I trying to be brusque or in any way being dismissive, but there was no other way to get an opportunity in art without being in close proximity to the center of the marketplace. And in 2008, my kids signed me up for Facebook, and I'm like, I have enough problems. I'm not interested. And then I sort of dabbled until I got addicted. I'm quite obsessive compulsive. Never noticed, among other things. And I just started engaging because Facebook, and I can write a whole book on the difference between Instagram and Facebook and Twitter. I refuse to call it by that other name because of a certain other person who's decimating the lives of hundreds of thousands of people within an hour and a half distance of where I landed today. Which is, I will mark my words. From hindsight, it will be proven that nothing Elon Musk has done to this government will prove to have saved $1. In fact, I think it's going to cost the government money. He's doing a great disservice, all for self-interest. This is the regime of where the conflicts of interest have dissipated to an extent that's unprecedented, where the degree of narcissism, and I mean, look, to be in art, you have to be a little bit vain and narcissistic. I'm not going to say I'm not, truth be told. But come on. It used to be you'd build a Chinese wall and you couldn't even say the word money, yet engage in like selling Bibles and golden sneakers and NFTs and golden hats made in China and like, look, we need reciprocity. I should stop. But now I'm getting sidetracked. Anyway, what was your question?
But you're not a provocateur.
So I'm there. The fact is, Facebook, I got into an argument with this famous British critic for like a year. And then I'm like, you know what? On Facebook. Instagram is pictures. You could be like the dumbest person in the world, but if it looks good, you could be a winner, an influencer, whatever that means, on Instagram. On Facebook, it's opposite. It's pure like ideational. I got into this argument with this critic, and it was so painful. I quit like Facebook. I never got an iPhone because I got sick of all this hegemony of everyone. I hate Amazon. I won't buy anything off of Amazon anymore. Every time I smell Amazon, if I go near Amazon, I get signed up for Prime. Like, screw you. I don't want Prime. I'm not paying for your 7,000-foot boat and your spaceships that don't go anywhere. It's like Disneyland. I'm not interested. If you go to the companies that are making the crap, you get a better price. You go to Amazon 3 times within an hour and you'll get 3 different prices. I'm not interested in this ridiculous centralization and homogenation of life. I want to experience different things from different people in different geographical places. Anyway, so like I told this guy, move to New York. Well, now the upside of Instagram, which when you're on Instagram, you don't communicate to your friends. You communicate to whatever Zucker, fill in the blank, 4 letters, whatever he dictates that you should see and communicate to, not your friends, whatever the algorithm permits you to see. You like look at something or, it's so controlled and it's so prophylactically not what it purports to be. It's a shame, but it's the best of what we have, so I use it. If you make digital stuff, you need to go to Twitter because Instagram is more traditional. Instagram is where the traditional art world lives. Twitter is where you can, I've sold 10,000 NFTs from Twitter. If I mention NFTs on Instagram, I'll get tarred and feathered in Washington Square Park. That's the way it is. So you have to, as an artist today, what I would recommend, since the kind of migration to e-commerce, post-COVID, every city in every corner of the globe has vacant storefronts. Take over a storefront, band together with your peers, open a gallery and show your own work. Do what you have to do. I'm in no position to mention Malcolm X, but he, on his passion for equality and parity, he said by any means necessary to achieve that. And that really stuck with me. If you want to do anything in life, with your career, you have to pursue it without any dissuasion. And if you want to make art, you can't go to galleries and it used to be the only way to communicate an image before social media was to send a photographic slide this big and hold it to the sun, hoping someone on the receiving end would look. No one looked. There was that recession when I first started my curatorial career, my art career. There was a recession that lasted from 1990 to 1995. It made the 2008 Great Recession. First of all, it wasn't really great, but also it was dwarfed by 1990 to 1995 when the art economy didn't constrict, it evaporated. So even back then, because I'm self-taught and outside the art world, I had to make my own opportunities, and I saw that early on. As an artist today, you have to use NFTs, make your own shows, band together with your friends, steal a mailing list from a gallery, and just find a way to do it yourself, because you want to be in a position where you're reliant on as few people as possible. And I've squirreled away art. I'm a hoarder. I've hoarded art from the first day. That's part of the great benefits of having a gallery or as a curator independently is you're exposed to great discounts. Art galleries get 50%. That's kind of ridiculous when you think about it. Like,
Do you have any idea how hard work is?
oh, believe me, I know. But like Paula Cooper, one of the great, important historical art
Another
theorists.
woman you're mentioning. Thank
I
you.
love people and women. Look, if we had more women in power in this damn universe of ours, we'd be in a lot better shape than we are now. And I'm not just sucking up to you guys because I really don't care, but it's true. Get rid of Trump, get rid of Xi in China, get rid of North Korea's leader, Netanyahu, some of the extremists in Hamas and Yemen and Iran, and get new blood in there that are just younger, more beneficent, and more compassionate. That's what we need. And people need to be kinder to each other. I mean, I had this show in New York, and I knew I've had loads of shows all over the world, but like this was my first like significant gallery show in New York, and I had trepidation, and I don't have much of it, as you could tell. And it's because in New York City, where you have the jaded, like ground zero of the art world, I knew very well that people were going to cross the threshold of that gallery with a preconceived notion of what I am, what I was, and what I'm not. And lo and behold, someone wrote one of the most vitriolic, they made my polemic writing look like child's play. Someone wrote one of the meanest things, that's personal attacks that's ever been written about me or said. A lot of terrible things have been said and written about me. Just because I'm honest. I'm not a bad person. I'm a decent person. And it was shocking. I have to say, like, I knew a review was coming, and I was so excited to open up the magazine. And it was shocking, and I felt like someone kicked me in the stomach and knocked the wind out of me. And then in the end, I have a way to jump the paywall. I'll share it with you. I love a little bit of chaos and anarchy in life. And I posted his nasty article online on my website. I don't care. And it said as much about him as it did about my art. And one of the sentences, besides the fact that it was the worst show of the year, it's only March, for Christ's sake. That's saying a lot. And then it said like my work was going to end up in a landfill. It was really outrageous. And then someone just wrote another article yesterday that was like defending me against that article. And she called the writer and she's like, what the fuck? And he was like, excuse me. And he was like, oh, I read a column he wrote and he talked up his own show in his column. Listen, the strongest form of reality testing is posting something online, publishing an article. You will hear with no uncertainty, quick enough. My greatest fact-checking editorially comes from the readers within 3 seconds of when my articles drop, because they take the red pen, literally, and email it to me and DM me and every other way people communicate, a Dixie cup with a string, and tell me. And yeah, so by the way, there's a website called just the word archive, archive.ph, like pH balance in a thing, pool or something. And you can put in the URL, like the address of any website with the wall protection. I take half the fee to write for ArtNet, so my work is in front of the paywall. So anyone who wants to read my writing could read it. Artists, people that don't have the wherewithal to pay $300 for some crap website, and they could read it. One of my editors gave me this information, and usually you would think writers and journalists would protect their turf. Sorry for journalists in this room. But so I posted that dumb article on my website, and then someone wrote a counter repost to his article. I exposed myself as such. There's a word for it called like crap chasing, some kids' words, where like someone uses you and attempts to hurt you publicly to elevate themselves to a greater notoriety. So it goes.
Mm-hmm. Well, you know what?
I need a nap.
We've said a lot here. Let's open this up to questions. Are you cool with that?
100,000%.
Oh,
no, you.
I might be a freaking idiot, but I don't even know what an NFT is.
You know what? I can explain it to you very well. In using an example, and the subject of my example would probably have a heart attack hearing his name mentioned. David Hockney, who's 115 right now, he just had a huge retrospective that just opened in a private museum owned by Bernard Arnault, who was like 6 weeks ago or 6 months ago the richest person in the world, which is amazing that like selling handbags and booze would make you the richest person in the world. And he has his private museum, and then his adversary, Francois Pinault, that owns like another luxury thing. He's got his private museum, and he opened a show of David Hockney in the last 25 years. David Hockney at one point was an artist who had one of the most extraordinary capacities of openness. He was one of the first artists, and he was well into like his 60s, that employed the iPad to make digital drawings, and they're stunning. They're fantastic and exquisite. It was a wonderful exhibition at the Royal Academy in London of these iPad drawings. What's the manifestation? God bless you. What's the manifestation when you make a digital work like that, an iPad drawing? If you're David Hockney, you make a photographic print that's sold by Pace Gallery, that's 30 by 40 or 50 by, comes in small, medium, and large for lots and lots of money, and it's a limited edition print. So when someone asked David Hockney what he thinks about NFTs, he said they're for criminals. Not regular criminals, but little bad criminals, not even good criminals, small criminals. Anyway, but to explain NFTs to you in the easiest way and the clearest, I think, I would use David Hockney as an example, which he would like prematurely roll over wherever he's going to end up soon. I can't wait to see his show. It's all work made in the past 25 years. He's a genius.
It's a non-fungible token. It's on the
No,
blockchain.
wait.
Fungible.
No, forget that. That's irrelevant. The point is, David Hockney makes digital drawings on his iPad with a stick. Wait. So that art is digitally native. It was made on a computer. Andy Warhol and Keith Haring made, and various other artists, and Hockney made art in this early precursor called Paintbox that was used by TV commercials and movies and music videos where you can do graphics on the computer. So you make a drawing on an iPad. Do you understand that?
Yeah.
Okay. Would you rather own a print from Pace Gallery for 150 grand, that's 30 by 40 inches, an edition of 50? Or would you rather own the high-res image in a sanctioned limited edition by David Hockney? And with that NFT, with owning a sanctioned, authenticatable digital file, you can then turn around and turn it into a photograph of any size you want for your house. You could project it onto your house. I have my exhibition in New York City that ended at 6 o'clock today. That was comprised of oil on canvas paintings that was made with a robot, derived from my digital files. So an NFT is a way to own an authenticatable digital thing in a way that can't always be checked and balanced because it's on the blockchain. So it's in this immutable database where no one could,
Like, these messages on Instagram, like, do you want to do an NFT? I really love your work.
Listen, the problem with NFTs are, besides the complexity, it's the most crime, it's the last bastion of pure illegality. Like, literally, the extent of of crime in the digital crypto space is by far, that's how the North Koreans and the Chinese make loads of money, by hacking into these systems. And I've been hacked so bad, like literally I lost $40,000 and I had 600 works, 650 artwork, 550 were mine and 100 I collected, are now hijacked because my wallet was compromised and I was hacked by a bot. And they used, it was so ingenious I had to write about it. I could only tip my hat because it was brilliant. It was tailored. They picked 15 high-profile people that have done NFTs, and they sent them this personalized ruse to get into my computer, which they did, and I'm still paying the price. And it was so disheartening. It was like a time I was mugged or my apartment was broken into. It's an awful feeling, and human nature dictates, like, we're violent to each other, we hurt animals, we hurt children, we hurt each other, and we steal. Greed, these are just primal characteristics of human nature. So NFTs had the possibility to offer artists for the first time in history since 1775 the opportunity to go directly to buyers, to do so without gatekeepers, without galleries. I never say like one is at the exclusion of something else. I say use them in concert together and use everything around you to get to where you want to be creatively. And NFTs were an extraordinary, brief opportunity. It'll come back. You can't put it back in the bottle because the blockchain, understandable or not, it's here to stay. It's a very significant shift in the way we process information. And soon your driver's license, your mortgage. There are scams where people like steal your title to your house and then they sell your house when you're like at work trying to make your mortgage payment. And like all of this stuff needs to be codified on some impermeable system. Like I said, as long as human greed will find a way around every obstacle, unfortunately. But the blockchain will prove to be increasingly more significant for subsequent generations of people, whether we get it or understand it or grapple with it.
Okay, who else? Question.
By the way, you can ask me questions for the rest of our lives, whoever goes first. But like, you can contact me through email, through social media. I return every message sent to me, typically within 24 hours. Say hello, introduce yourself. Don't just ask me, how do I sell my art better? Because that'll really annoy me. I get that all the time. Then I'll just post it and make it. But like, anyone can contact me. You can all come to my house. Hopefully not at the same time. I'm a bit OCD and like follow my wife around with a sponge. But like, if I say you can come to my house, you can come to my house. If I say I'll try to help you, if it's within my power to do so without, an inordinate amount of whatever, I'll do it because that's why I'm here on this planet. And yeah, so if you don't have time or you don't have the wherewithal to ask a question today, I work by myself. I have a few part-time assistants, but my team is me. I can barely get along with me. And you can always contact me and ask me any question today, tomorrow, or the day after.
Hi.
I have a question
Rachel.
about the creative process. Do you think that everything has already been made already? And do you think that, and where do ideas come from? And is it just a reflection, mastication of society? Or, I'd love to hear more about your creative process.
That's a really good question. I mean, my friend Jerry Saltz wrote a book. He's probably the most populous art critic in the history of art criticism with his 600,000 followers. And he does this kind of lecture thing where I say he should have a one-person show on Broadway or something. But he wrote a book, How to Be an Artist, the rules of how to be an artist. My book on how to be an artist would be on the back of a business card. I got into art because I'm not terribly good at complying with anything. You tell me no and you're inciting me to continue. And the reason I'm in art is because there are no rules, because you create your own destiny. I am so fascinated by people from all walks of life. I befriended this extraordinary Iraqi architect, Zaha Hadid. It was one of the most incongruous relationships in the world, the Muslim from Iraq and the Jew from Long Island. And she changed my life. And I wasn't obsessed with architecture per se, but I love self-wrought people that shape their own destiny. And she was that person. Inspiration comes from a tree, a blade of grass, the newspaper, the television. It comes from anywhere, everywhere, the things around you. I mean, some of the craziest things. And that's the beauty of art, is that I saw my dad, he was mean, he was unkind and sadistic practically. And my whole life was expressed for the first 30 years in the negative. What I did, I knew what I didn't want from my life. And I knew what I did want in my life, but I didn't know what it was or how to get it. Then I found out about art, and I was like, I tried fashion. You wouldn't know it from looking at me. That was after law school. I handed my resume out after the bar exam to 100 companies in the garment neighborhood, because to me that was a way to be creative and make it a business, even though I'm not, as you could see, well acclimated to such a enterprise. But I just thought I went to the floor of the stock exchange when I was in law school because I thought that could be fun. And then I realized, like, if I have to add and subtract with my fingers, which is like, that's the first red flag about a career in finance. And then I started writing, and I stayed with that, and it really honed my concentration and my ability. And then I went into fashion after the law school. And that was like Willy Loman carrying around. I got a job with like the grandson of a great Italian fashion company who was making ties, neckwear, which happens to be how Ralph Lauren started. And I was carrying around these gigantic suitcases and fanning out these ties in these mom and pop places. And it was degrading. And it was, first of all, I couldn't even lift the damn things. And then you'd go to a little teeny boutique and you'd sell like $1,000 of ties, and you'd have to go before some committee meeting that would take. And then I have such a bad sense of direction. I would get lost for 2 hours and see a little sign with an airplane symbol on it, and then go home. So that didn't go terribly well. And then I found out about art, and I said, by any means, I'll make this my life. My inspiration comes from the newspaper, books. I teach to read, to keep reading, the news. I love journalism so much as a journalist, but for me, it's like reading I read every newspaper, from the most yellow journalism to the FT, the Wall Street Journal. The FT is one of the greatest. The weekend section of the Financial Times is probably the best culture reporting there is today. And by the way, like when it comes to watching the news, we were having this conversation with Doug on the way here. You can't even watch, like, there used to be the news where you would turn on a news station and see what's happening in the world. Today, you turn on Fox, you know what you get. You turn on CNN, they negate each other because they're so polemic. And they have these, again, like people coming into my show in New York City, they have these preconceived notions before the fact of what they're going to say and how they're going to say it. You can't get any news of what's happening in a conflagration in Congo or here or there or any other place in the world. You go to MSNBC, it's another kind of, reporting with blinders on. You go to BBC and you get their brand. And weirdly, like you go to the financial media and then you see the news. And I haven't invested $1 in my life other than like buying a bunch of art, which I sell piecemeal to make a living when the NFT thing stopped. And I own my house, thank God, even though the taxes in New York are so high, it's prohibitive. Anyway, so I go to Bloomberg on television, and if there's really one religion left in the world, and it's called capitalism, whether you're Chinese, whether you're North Korean, that's really what's ruling the roost. And the art world, sadly, has been reduced to the lowest denominator, which is money. That's how most people function. That's why no one reports truth like I do, because they don't want to alienate someone they can make a buck from. So anyway, my inspiration comes from Bloomberg, comes from the newspaper, comes from books, comes from philosophy, comes from everywhere. There's no rhyme or reason, and that's the beauty of it.
Craig.
So on this subject, when I moved to Manhattan in 1975, you could still afford to rent a lot, rent a studio. It's affordable to live. You could afford to be poor. And
That's a great way to put it.
now,
You can't. Well, the thing is, you live, Williamsburg, I lived in the UK for 15 years. And then I moved back 6 years ago. And I used to be one of these downtown idiots. Like, I don't want to go past 14th Street uptown. That's where, like, certain whatever. now I don't. When I was in the UK reporting on the art world in New York, whenever I would go to visit a gallery, a museum, or whatever, I would stay in Midtown. That's where the MoMA was. That's where the auction houses are, which I reported on for a long time. Not anymore. Now I'm making art primarily. And then I was like, I really like it up here. I'm getting older. I'm more conservative. When I went to find a place to live, we found a place that was, believe it or not, it's cheaper where I am on 62nd and 3rd, between 2nd and 3rd, than like Williamsburg, Brooklyn, or the Lower East Side, which is rife with every unimaginable thing. I'm the only one who dresses age inappropriately in my neighborhood. It's calm, it's peaceful. I can walk to every museum. There's loads of galleries. I eat the same food every day, so I don't care where I'm eating it. But I've been working my whole entire life to be able to afford there. But now, because of the tools that I've discussed, social media, NFTs, communicating online, you could literally live anywhere in the world and find a way to nurture your own. You have to do it yourself, create your own audience, and you could live anywhere that you can afford.
The art schools in New York are full.
Art schools are like the only reason art school is like finishing school for poodle.
Yeah, but then
Like it's good to learn technique, yes. But people like nowadays are not even interested. It's like de-skilling art. But yeah, there are art schools everywhere. Maybe they're not like I couldn't get into any schools anyway. But there are art schools in every jurisdiction. It's a matter of what you're prepared to, how you're prepared to apply yourself. You can go to art school anywhere. You can go online and post your stuff. Sure, you have to hustle. I'm hustling every day. My art market is, I sold things at various points in my life pretty well. But more often than not, I don't. I don't make art that's in the same series. I don't reproduce myself ad infinitum because I get bored. So I make disparate things that look differently, and most people are not terribly interested.
Where I'm trying to go with this is, okay, the guys in the 50s hung out at the Cedar Club. There was a community, and they influenced each other, and inspiration came from that.
Sure. Still does.
They picked fights, but it was like,
Still do.
Yeah, but if you don't have that kind of collaboration, you don't have that on NFTs.
You do have it on NFTs.
Well,
So NFTs for me were about communication, collaboration, and the community. I saw the only time I was really involved in a deep art community was when there was no art market at all. Do you know that contemporary art was never in an evening art auction until 1996, 97? The reason it wasn't was that was all like Impressionism and modern art. The auction houses didn't look at contemporary art as a profit center where they could make money. So literally, now I'm really getting far afield. There was a Boston heart surgeon, and he was in charge of a very significant children's heart foundation that raised and donated money for significant life-saving surgeries for the children. And the head of the foundation, this doctor, I call him one of the great art collectors in a very cynical, terrible way, which you'll soon find out why. He was such an avid collector of contemporary art. Kiki Smith.
Another woman, thank you.
A woman who's Kiki Smith, Jeff Koons, Matthew Barney, Janine Antoni, who I gave one of her first shows to, a whole host of young artists. When he needed art is like collecting art becomes like a disease. I'm sure a few of you have that affliction and obsession like me. And he had to have art so badly, he embezzled the money from the fund that was earmarked for children's heart surgery. And when he went to jail, which he well deserved to do, they sold his collection, and this woman, they never get the credit. This art dealer called Tracy Williams. Like Tobias Mayer is a famous German auctioneer who worked at Sotheby's. He gets all the credit. Or Philippe Sigalo, a French auctioneer who worked at Christie's. They get all the credit. But the person who had the idea was a woman called Tracy Williams, and she put 11 pieces from this disgraced doctor into a night sale just stuck in a modern and impressionist art sale at Sotheby's in 96. And there was Jeff Koons, Kiki Smith, and all these other, Matthew Barney and all these other artists. And Kiki Smith made $260,000, which was a tremendous leap away from her previous auction record. And Jeff Koons made $230,000, less than her. And now Jeff Koons' auction record is $90 million for a stupid piece that just reflects the rich person that bought it, Steve Cohn. I broke that story. It just gives the people exactly what they want, a reflection of themselves. And this was the first, and after that, Christie's followed suit, and now contemporary art is the center of that market. So, what was that question again? Yeah, so I mean, look, and you do find a community in NFTs because I found it. So when I got involved with art, there was no market. There was no notion that you could make $10 doing art. But when you're an artist, it's coursing through your circulatory system. You have no choice. No.
What is not the same? The NFT community?
Listen, the art world was much smaller then. You can't. I smoked plenty of joints when I used to get high.
Because they don't like your work.
You're wrong. It was a smaller world. You can't hark back to another time. It's a different.
To afford a studio.
Bullshit.
That's the biggest
It was a different world. There are different pockets of people. Berlin sprang up. Now there's, like, I'm friendly with this brilliant artist, Tracy Emin, who many of you heard of. She was homeless. She was abused. She was destitute. And she used to yell and scream on a soapbox about the abuse she suffered and made a whole body of art about her experiences as a subjugated woman. And she went from that situation to becoming a national treasure, making untold sums of money, giving all of her money to charity and to help others. She started her own art school in Margate. She changed the face of a whole city. No, stop shaking your head. You have to. Yes, I'm going to tell you the subject. There's a new community in Margate in the UK where artists are living inexpensively, making work inexpensively, getting it supported institutionally with a home-brewed art school. There is a community there. They have an opening this weekend. This woman is selling art for millions of dollars, and she's curating every show. She's in the second year of her own, bootstrapped herself into a school, and she's creating opportunities. She's created a community which is as real as the Cedar Tavern. There's never going to be a world where there's like 100 artists in New York City fighting with each other in a bar, getting wasted and thrown down drunk. That was a time. That impetus, that sentiment, those relationships, you don't believe me and I'll never persuade you, but I don't care. I'm telling you, that still exists in other places, in other countries, or in Brooklyn, or in Queens, or in other places. You can never quash that humans are like dogs. We're social animals. We will bond, we will form together, no matter where we do it, or how we do it, or why we do it. That's not going to stop because of high rent. Sorry.
So can I ask a question?
Now I'm sweating and exhausted.
I know some of you are sorry, we're going over, but it's great.
Anyone who leaves, you do so with impunity, and I don't blame you.
Kenny commented that you really don't need to be in New York City anymore. To be
relevant, to be relevant.
Tell your work and really be marketing yourself on Facebook and things like that. But the next conversation that you were just having went to community and being together with.
This is a community of really cool people.
Absolutely. Which is where I was going with it. I mean, I worked for many years in the nonprofit sector, and art was not part of my world. I don't want to Melissa, when she's doing for this community, is bringing people together. The diversity of the art is just astounding.
Here you go.
And we have people come in, I work very part-time, but people come in from this community who have never been in New York now.
You're more emotional than me. You're worse than me.
Making me emotional.
Why am I here? I didn't know anything about Melissa, this town, this gallery. Someone reached out to me from a small town that I didn't know anything about. I didn't Google you and do research and find out who you are, where you are, what your net worth is. I don't give a damn. You invited me to come, and I came. It could have been a disaster with 6 people that were like fast asleep.
But I
Only
use
a few
social
of you
media.
were. I don't care, but I'm here because this community invited me into their house, and I decided, and I like, look, I'm thinking like, oh, I have to learn to say no. I'm on the train, it took me 5 hours to get here. And then I'm thinking like, what the fuck when am I going to learn my lesson? I'm 63 years old, I have kids. But you know what?
You know a good day over 62.
Oh, yeah. I've seen things in this room that are fantastic. I don't like everything. I'm not the wherewithal and quality or anything, but I'm here. I've seen stuff I like. I've seen people that are extraordinary. Your level of engagement is awe-inspiring, and I'm thrilled I came here. This is a community. I'm here because you invited me. You're extraordinarily kind and gracious. Your husband is very nice and patient. And what's your question?
Well, first off, I only have 7 out of 8 chromosomes, so please forgive me. You know, I can only be expected to get 87.5% on anything. And by the way, I love the fact that this is not hung. If that was purposeful, I think that's brilliant. On the subject of coons,
Do we have how many chromosomes? I don't even. I'm trying to figure out what that
on the
means.
subject of men and women, you know, 7
Yeah.
chromosomes.
Well, sadly, the administration now is drawing lines on who you are and what you're not, and changing your passport designation. People should be whatever the hell they want to be. You want to be a chicken, then be a chicken.
To the point of when you brought up coons, if you're an artist operating at the level of employing like over 100 interns to create your art, do you consider that person an artist or
Listen.
a creative manager?
Artists, old the rent. Listen, art and money have been bedfellows from day one. The first trademark lawsuit enforcing a trademark was done by Albert Dürer in like the 1600s or 1700s. He used to sign his initials in a very distinct manner, and people were ripping him off, so he sued them. He would have his mother go and flog his art throughout Europe, his prints, to prepare himself for his European travels. He said, why should I make a painting when I could make more money selling prints? That's Dürer. In like 1650, I may get my dates wrong. I'm not terribly good with numbers, I mentioned. So art and money, I always say they screw, but they should sleep in separate beds. Artists should not have money as the motivate. There are artists like Damien Hirst. He makes every art piece he makes, every art piece he says he makes, because he pretends that I don't care if you have assistants. Is your idea good? Is your art good? I use fabrication means. I don't have any assistants, but I have people that help me part-time to do things I can't do because my attention only runs so far and my bandwidth is only so much. But like when Damien Hirst makes a painting, that painting comes in small, medium, extra small, medium small, extra large, extra large, and there's 3,000 of them. They're in NFTs, they're in prints, they're in paintings.
So by any means necessary, like Bezos, right?
No, screw that. Make art for the right reasons because you love art. Don't make art to become like an assembly line. Andy Warhol didn't make his art. He used silkscreen and mechanical means of reproduction. But a lot of his art, which look, the art world recoils from innovation, is adverse to change, is the most conservative business. I worked in the stock market, the fashion world, the legal world, 5 other worlds I'm forgetting. And nothing prepared me for how backward looking the art world is. You should do what you love for the right reasons because you love it. You don't have to repeat yourself. That guy is so stinking rich. When is enough enough? When is enough for the beast? Everybody, all of them. Anyone who does stuff without a moral reason to do, without the right reasons. Maybe making 2,000 is part of your conceptual concept. See, that's great. But when you're just doing it to get another plane, another house, and another boat, and another blah, then it just, I always said I went running away from big business by running into the art world, and then art became bigger than the business I was running away from. That's shameful. It's sad. There are no rules about making art, and making money should certainly not be one of them. If that's what you love, money, then okay, great. I don't begrudge anyone. There are certain artists, because he's talented, I mean, it's very, very commercial. When you take my beloved Sesame Street characters and put crosses through their eyes, and that's art, that's terrible. I love Sesame Street, but like he just got a show at SF MoMA because he generates box office, and like I don't care. I'm not gonna tell him he shouldn't call himself an artist. He's make cool graffiti stuff.
Suzanne.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, sorry.
Just a little short comment. Listening to this, so I've taught, you all know I've taught over the course of many years, I don't teach anymore, but I always told my students, whether it was at MICA, whether it was at community college, whether it was my son and his sister.
The chromosomeless son.
No, listen. You know, human beings are created by nature, biology, and probably survival. We had to be creative to think our way out of, not being eaten by a saber-tooth. And I think creative people, it spans the gamut. And I used to always tell my students, especially at community college, they'd come and say, "Oh man, I color theory, I know nothing, I can't draw it." You can. You might do it differently, but are you? Oh, you're an accountant. You're creative. You use numbers. I probably get arrested for if I do my own taxes, but we're all creative. We use different mediums. But I feel like this, we live in, and maybe it was all started then or way back. But when you had cave paintings, why did people do that? We don't know. There are a lot of conjectures about it. But that whole idea of the spirituality, we're still the same biologically. We have a need to be spiritual, but we live in a world where, your value. I got out of grad school. Boy, you better become a professor, and you better get a good gallery, and you're going to be successful. And the reality of doing that was not as easy as possible. But the point is that it's a big world. It's all mixed up. But I think underlying it all, there's this spiritual need, and people who chase after money. I'm not a psychologist, but a psychologist could give you a whole different slant on why. And so the whole slant now is creatives need to make money, and I feel like I used to tell kids at my age, they're like, color theory, oh, here's my painting, I didn't do your assignment because I'm going to get discovered in New York. I'm like, good luck with that. But find something that you're passionate about. Be passionate about your art and find something you can stomach to get up and go do everything.
Sure.
Make your rent.
100%.
And go home and make this.
But I think making art is not just to avoid saber-toothed tigers.
Right.
But
not now.
Making art is one of the key things that separates our species from any other species, that we make art and do these kind of futile things for creativity and for self-expression. I agree with you 1 billion %.
But if you're employing 100 people, are you actually making it?
It doesn't matter. If you're good at it and it's done for the right reasons, not just to make a buck, then
I mean,
I said, these old master artists or Renaissance, they employ giant studios of even Rembrandt and
Michelangelo had
yeah, of course, Da Vinci, like this painting that sold for pornographic, grotesque amounts of money, whether it was by him or not, maybe a fingernail was, but he had a big studio practice. That doesn't matter. It's a matter of intent and I think if you take a painting that's this big, that has the benefit of time, and I think a good art has an inherent value, an objective value, that if you take a painting from 1930, art needs time. Another thing is that art is a slow burning process. Life is a slow burning process. Everyone wants, now, kids. And so scroll. Our brains are being genetically altered by these apps are engineered by psychiatrists. Like, do you know, like the scrolling of TikTok and all that other shit, that's done to emulate it like a slot machine. These things are engineered to screw with your well-being. Yes, I mean, my shrink told me I need to be more spiritual. But that's part of it, a basic level of humanity. I think even my robot paintings are emotional. Some people beg to differ, but that's their prerogative. But I think I did a book where I went to Europe in the 35 years ago. And I was shocked, like in Germany, where I taught myself, one of the places I taught myself art in real life, not just the art history book, was traveling around Europe, in Germany, and especially because I studied German philosophy. And I was amazed that like Joseph Beuys made these artworks that were unnumbered. They were meant to be disseminated inexpensively, so they could be. So you would go into someone's home who wasn't wealthy, who wasn't an art collector, who didn't even know that much about anything in the art world, but had a Joseph Beuys infinity box, which was a wooden box with a little rendering, and they were made in an open edition. And I was so taken aback. And I did this book project 20 years ago plus, where I interviewed 100 people from Harlem to Wall Street. Do you know about who Jeff Koons is, who Andy Warhol is, who this one is, who that one? What do you think about art? What do you think about... And it's like, some of the feedback was profound and extraordinary. People would say, like, if you cut hair with passion, just what you said, like, if you do what you do with love and compassion, anything and everything is art. And I believe that wholeheartedly.
Suzanne, I'm sorry, we have to move on. Suzanne?
8:47.
Okay, come on.
Sorry, you have mentioned your own, that you were an artist and you don't have the art schools, and you mentioned that the art schools and cultural techniques, and actually you also mentioned that inspiration comes from the world and also personal experience. You've also mentioned many artists in history or voice. How important would you say, or is it important for an artist to have an understanding or knowledge of art history?
If you want to be an artist, you better damn well know how it got on the cave wall and why it's been coveted since it's been removed from the cave. I mean, by the way, YouTube videos, which my attention span doesn't normally facilitate me watching them through, but like, I taught myself art history. If you want to learn art history, if you want to learn to draw, if you want to learn to do computer art, all the tools, the infrastructure is there to an extent. I'm giving a lecture. I teach all the time, and I consider my teaching to be part of, I think everything I do is some way an expression of my creativity. My teaching, my writing, my art making, all of it. So I'm giving a lecture, art education, education art. I made these sculptures that were seats in a museum, and it was meant to, Joseph Beuys started a university, Free International University, and he said, he was asked about his legacy as an artist, and he said, my teaching was my greatest legacy. So I'm doing a lecture in a museum, a private museum in Brooklyn, and I was watching a documentary, which I got through most of it last night, but I was running on like 5 hours of sleep or 4 hours of sleep. There's Hans Hofmann, speaking about color theory, you reminded me, his teaching was, he started his own school in 1933. Go to YouTube and Google Hans Hofmann. It's free, and it's an hour long, and it's awe-inspiring. It's insane. It's so great. This school, his teaching is art. His art, he went back to making art because he could, but at that time, teaching was the only way he could make money. Then he started his own school. There's many people from him. John Ruskin had a school. So I'm doing a whole lecture, which I consider to be like a performance, and about artists that have started their own school and what it means to be. You can educate yourself in anything if you want to. If you cut hair, you can walk down the street artistically if you want to.
Okay, yes George.
First of all, thank you. But on behalf of, I just want to say a word to Melissa and Doug and each of the people who came, how as far as the foundation goes that we have here, what an inspiration it is. Every time I walk in here into this facility, this gallery, it's like I open a new book. And with that, I find amazing information, thoughts like I would have never had. The simple fact that the joy, the true joy, the true giving, there's never been a thought about how profitable it is. This is how good it is, how great it helps our kids, our grandkids, how they can all learn. You know, you can feel the heartfelt when he speaks about his own, because that's the way we all feel. But this community, this front row Warren County, Northern Virginia area, this community is benefiting way beyond measure with what's happening here each time we visit. So I want to thank them, even the driver you had.
I mean, I've already learned more from this experience than I brought to the table. So I'm benefiting from the largesse of all of you people that's come here, even the phone dropper and everybody else. I think it's great, and it's amazing that, like, you've all sat through this, you might run on sentence, and changed my life. And that's why I'm here, and I'm really thankful.
Well, we are thankful that you came. Thank you so much. Is there one thought you would like to leave Front Royal with? One thought that you would like our art community of artists to leave with? Just one brief thought. It's kind of like an encore.
Beg your pardon? Get in touch. Don't be shy.
All right. We're going to New York.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.